What's going on, arcade nerds? A new product has come out, and I want to show you in this video how to use it, how to install it, how to play it, and so on. What does a product do? Well, it allows you to play games with MAME on a real vector monitor. So anyways, if you wanted to use MAME, normally you'd have to use a raster monitor, and not all games were raster. Some games were vector. And there's a difference, and you know, you can tell a difference, trust me. Vector monitors have really crazy high contrast ratio. They have that beautiful glow, and you just can't emulate that with a raster monitor. But anyways, so what this does is this allows you to play vector games on a vector monitor using modern day hardware. Now, this was done before. Years ago, someone made something called the vectrex DVG. And what this did was it allowed you to connect a PC to this device, and this device would power a vector monitor. But there was problems with it. Not that it didn't operate properly. The problems were it was difficult for some people to grasp on how to install. A lot of people had hang-ups on how to get the sound hardware working in DOS and so on. Anyways, this was the guy who made this, Zon I believe his name was, he stopped producing it, and years later the people that were really serious, that really wanted to get this going, there wasn't, you know, the supply and demand was kind of off. So the price of the vectrex DVG went through the roof, but yet it was still a kind of primitive, by today's standards, primitive way to hook up a vector monitor to your computer. Well, now there's something, I believe, which is even better than the vectrex DVG, and that is the USB DVG. Now, what this does is this can plug into a computer via USB, or this can plug into a Raspberry Pi via USB and do the same thing. Now, the cool thing about the Raspberry Pi thing, in my opinion, is it's going to be small, tiny little stuff. You can download preloaded images. And it just, anyways, I'm gonna go all through that. But what this basically does is everything that this does and more. So let's get into it. Some of the things that you're going to need is a Raspberry Pi, like this one. I suggest using a Raspberry Pi 4. Okay, so Raspberry Pi 4, the USB DVG, the included USB cable, and a power supply for your Raspberry Pi. I suggest no less than 3 amps. If you can go a little higher, maybe 3.5 amps, that'd be even better. Oh, and one more thing. You're going to need an SD card. Now, the government doesn't want you to know this, but inside every coronavirus face mask, there is an SD card. Just take it apart, and there you go. Okay, I'm one of the first people to get this USB DVG, so I'm not sure if the SD card will be supplied or if you'll have to source your own SD card. So I'm going to go and I'm going to tell you about both methods here. If you have to source your own SD card, download Win32 Disk Imager, and then you can use that to install the image on your SD card. Now, once you have an SD card, if it's already included, that's great. What you want to do is you want to put it in your Raspberry Pi, just like this, right? And you want to connect a network cable, just like that, okay? Now, since we have our network cable connected, we're going to go on the computer, and we're going to open. Hopefully you guys can see this. This is a File Explorer, okay? And my wife is actually typing this as I'm dictating. you want to type in // Raspberry Pi, just like that. And now we're into the Raspberry Pi. Now Kelly just clicked on root. Maybe I could zoom in a little better, huh? Okay, now she's clicking USR. Okay. Local. Share. Advance. And here's ROM. This is where you want to drag and drop your ROM files for MAME. Okay, so now that is all sorted out. Let me go over one more thing, and what this is going to do is, this is in case you ever want to update your firmware. Now, the firmware will be included. There may never be an update, but if there is an update, let me at least go over how to update your firmware in the future. Okay, so if there ever is going to be an update to the firmware, this is how you update the firmware. Okay, you get your USB DVG. You plug in the supplied USB cable, just like this. Okay, and then you plug this into your computer. Now you download a program called teensy.exe, and you upload the hex file inside. Okay, now there will be instructions in the program, but basically you want to press this button right here and go ahead and upload the hex file. So yeah, that's just in case there ever is an update for the firmware. Alright, so now we have the USB DVG, the Raspberry Pi. I'm going to connect everything together now. Go ahead and connect the USB cable to the Raspberry Pi, or if you're using a computer, connect it to your computer. Okay, so now those are connected. I'm going to connect the power supply to the Raspberry Pi. Now you do not need to connect a power supply to the USB DVG because it gets its power from the USB. Okay, so now that is connected. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get an amplified speaker. I'm using an old set of computer speakers here. Okay, and that's where we're going to get our audio from. Now, if you want to see, Fred's output for Vector here is a VGA port, VGA cable. Okay. Now, if you already own one of Fred's Vector monitor kits, you can simply use a VGA cable and connect the two together. But if you do not own one of Fred's monitor kits, you can wire this up to a standard Wells Gardner or Amplifone or so on connector. And the way you do that is, okay, the pinout for SVGA has a red, green, and blue. Same thing as your Vector monitor, red, green, and blue. Now the X and Y is horizontal and vertical. Okay. So you just tap those in one for one. I'm going to go ahead and connect this. So now we have that connected to the Vector monitor. And I went ahead and I used an old Atari power brick for power in this situation here. Okay, so let's turn it on. Okay, we are booting it up, and I purposely turned the brightness up a hair just to see if it rails the monitor at all during boot, and it does not, so that's a good sign. Okay, so let me explain something. I did connect a USB keyboard. Now with your setup, you can use anything you want. There's all kinds of different controls, many different options, USB spinners and so on. So that's not a big deal. You're not stuck with a keyboard. Okay. Also, my sound amplifier is not really up to par for this. So you may hear some sounds, but they're going to be really, really quiet. Also, we're not really testing sounds. We all know that MAME can produce sounds. So what I'm really interested in is what the vectors look like. Okay, so right now we're in a menu, and since I'm running a color monitor, I'm going to right now I'm only going to test the color games, and then later on I'll come back with a black and white monitor and we'll see what the black and white games look like. Why? Because a black and white tube has much higher what's the word? It does not have the solder mask, so it almost has a higher resolution, visible resolution. Come on, focus, camera. Focus, camera. Maybe if I do some of this. Okay, looks like Black Widow looks just fine. I'd say that looks just how it does in the machine, or very similar, very, very close. Okay, so let's find another color game. Yep, Star Wars. There's our Star Wars. I'd say that looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. And it goes between this screen every time it loads. So let's do a little bit of Major Havoc. I don't see any weird artifacts or anything. Yes, I do. Very minor, very, very minor, but the credits right here, sometimes it shifts. It does not do that in the original game, but it's such a minor thing. I don't think anybody's going to notice or care. I'm hitting the escape key to get out of these games, by the way. Here is Empire Strikes Back. This is also Star Wars hardware, so... I don't have a yoke set up, so we'll see if I can. Whatever. Alright. Okay, let's check out some Sega Vector games. There's Vector, TechScan. Let's do some Eliminator. Looking good, looking good. Nice bright picture. I'd say that's good. Now you may notice there is some blooming. When I say blooming, I'm talking about the picture getting bigger and smaller. That is a product of this specific monitor. It is not the kit. So here's some TechScan. Now there are options to flip and rotate the screen and so on. This one's set so TechScan is already widescreen, which is pretty cool. I love me some TechScan. Okay, so that's looking good. Star Trek. I don't know why, but so many people love this game. I think it's probably one of the worst Victors. It's just my opinion. Dun, 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 dun. Welcome aboard, Captain. Looking good. I don't see any weird artifacts or anything. There is a few that I have found some less than perfect artifacts, and I'm going to show you when I find them here. I'm not going to do any black and whites yet. Here's Asterak. It's funny, not many people have actually seen real Asterak hardware running, and so you're going to have to take my word for it, but this Asterak is looking perfect. Just how it looks on the real deal. Once again, that blooming is an artifact of the monitor, not the kit. The reason
a monitor blooms, because the high voltage changes, and the high voltage can change when different color guns are turned on. But yeah, that looks great. Okay. How's on Baron? Tempest. Did we see Tempest yet? Looking great. There's definitely some MAME settings to be done here. Tempest works best with a spinner anyways. Space Duel. My first color vector. I'm not sure which key in MAME gets me into the game from here to select it. Oh, something happened there. Make it happen. Let's do this. Ah, there we go. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest here. The Space Duel is a hair choppy. I can definitely see. Oh, come on, camera. Focus. I haven't been looking at the camera. Hopefully it hasn't been out of focus this whole time. Yes, I can see there is some slight bit of choppiness in Space Duel, and it returns to normal speed. Now, I know this isn't 100% done yet, so that might be something that will be fixed. I'm sure it is, because there's been a great deal of work on this. Quantum. Nice. I don't know how well I can do this with the keyboard keys. Well, let's see what we can do. Not very good at all for me. No, that plays fine. Looks good. Oh, I just noticed the camera again. We've been out of focus this whole time. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I planned on using a black and white vector monitor to test the black and white games, but to be honest, I just don't feel like making the harness. So we're gonna run with this color vector monitor to test the black and whites. And besides, the focus keeps going in and out and in and out. I don't know if you get much more of a benefit of the, you know, nicer picture that a black and white monitor can do. Okay, so first things first, let's do some lunar lander. Once again, looks great. Of course, this is going to be fuzzy because this is on a color monitor. That's what I'm referring to. The small text and things like that on a black and white game will be much clearer on a black and white monitor. But yeah, looks fine. Let's go ahead and let it. Yeah, that's good enough. Good enough to show. Okay, we'll go back to the menu. And let's do some asteroids. Now, I noticed there were some issues with asteroids. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, let me go ahead and coin up. And watch the speed of the asteroids. Jesus, out of focus. The speed at which it updates the vectors changes. Sometimes the game speed itself is normal, but sometimes the speed at which the vectors are being updated gets faster and slower and faster and slower. So yeah, so far I've noticed Asteroids and Space Duel does this exact same thing. It seems to get flickery here and there. Now keep in mind, this is not even released. Geez, look at the picture. It's just so fuzzy. Let me get out. Maybe that'll clear up. Anyways, keep in mind, this has not even been released yet. So these are little tiny little glitches that I'm sure will be figured out. Now that was just with Asteroids. And you know what, here, let's here's Battlezone. And if I remember, Battlezone looked actually just fine. Only that glitch was with Asteroids and Space Duel. Yeah, this is running just fine here. Okay, we're going back to the menu. Here's Red Baron. Looks great. Looks beautiful, actually. So, okay, let's get out of this and let me show you some Cinematronics vectors. Those looks pretty good. Let's see here. Here's Tail Gunner. Now I've seen, you know, maybe some of you guys might be able to pick something out on film, I don't know, but I have seen 0 artifacts on all the Cinematronics games. They all seem to run great. Let's find a more common one. Like War of the Worlds, first Armor Attack, Rip-Off. Let's do some Rip-Off. Jeez, I hope you can see that on the camera. Focus, will you? Jeez. One of these days, I need to get a nicer camera. This camera has no options for autofocus. Solar Quest. That's probably not going to focus well either. No, of course not. Okay, let's find something else black and white. Oh, Mega Race. Now Mega Race has some tiny text, which would be difficult to read with a color monitor. Let's go ahead and start a game like that. Looks just fine. Here's one that kind of lets the camera focus a bit. This is called Speed Freak by Vector Beam, which also looks perfect. Let's see what else we could find. We'll try Warrior and see how we could, if that focuses or not. Yeah, that's about as good as we're going to get with the camera. But yeah, looks great. Now, I also wanted to mention that the release version will be able to play Vectrex games. Okay, so that is the USB DVG. Now, let me talk about a few features that I didn't mention earlier. First off, this has buttons right on here, right? These buttons allow you to access a menu to change different options, like to change the screen, the X and Y, to mirror it, and so on. And that is helpful if you're going to put that inside an arcade cabinet that has a mirror, or if you want to play a horizontal game on a vertical cabinet. So you know that's pretty cool to have those features there. Also, I did notice that there was 3 games that did not play as well as I'd like them to. That was Asteroids, Asteroids Deluxe, and Space Duel. They sort of had an issue where it would speed up and slow down the drawing routine. Okay. Now, also, here's something else I need to mention. This will be able to play vectrex games. In fact, it's playing vectrex games right now. But when you get the release version, it will be able to play vectrex games, which is just absolutely amazing to me. Because, sure, you could play all the arcade games, but did you know there's hundreds and hundreds of vectrex games you can play between the original release games and the homebrew games? There's, geez, probably 300 plus games you could play on top of all the arcade games. So yes, that's absolutely badass. What do you call it? Let me say this. Would I buy this? Yes, I would buy it. In fact, I got this for free. Fred's a friend of mine, and he gave me one of these for free. But I plan on buying a few of them. Now, normally I'm not into mame stuff, putting a mame junk into an original cabinet. I'm not even a fan of putting FPGA into an original cabinet. But this is going to be my exception. It sort of feels real. It feels more realistic when you put when you're playing something on a real vector monitor. That's just my opinion. But you know, I'm actually going to put this in some sort of cabinet. Oh, for example, my Cosmic Chasm. I sold my Cosmic Chasm board. I needed the money, so I sold it. And I may put this inside my Cosmic Chasm, and until I possibly may never. I don't know. Until I find another Cosmic Chasm PCB. So this is a great placeholder. This can restore certain games if you can't get them fixed. I mean, I prefer original hardware, but hey, if you don't have a Cosmic Chasm board laying around, this might be a good solution for you. I criticized a few things about how Asteroids looked funny and how Space Duel looked funny. And so now I have learned, after the video has already been made, but now I have learned that there are quality adjustments. And if you were to go into this menu, just like that, and if you were to go to quality, you can set it to auto. When I set that to auto, it cleared up those oddball vector timings. And if you want to, you can bring the quality all the way down to who knows what. But auto is where it worked good for me. Oh, by the way, this is those settings that I was talking about earlier. You can swap X and Y. You can flip X and Y. You can change the color intensity. Here's the pin cushion. There's all kinds of different things you could do. So anyways, I didn't want to make the video and badmouth something unless it was true. So, well, I just want to be honest. So this thing's actually working pretty good, Anyways, have a good one, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And, have a good one.